We're gonna get going, everybody. The pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The roll, please, Amy.
Mr. Anise,
Present?
Mr. Arcuri, Mr. Hova, Mr. Brodsky,
Here.
Mr. Coyne, Mr. D'Elia,
No.
Mr.
Did you call me?
Yes.
Sorry. Here. Who?
Mr. Ford,
I was.
Mr. Karam,
Here.
Where are we?
Mr. Mutolo, Mr. Sampson,
Here.
and Ms. Chesney. Thank you.
Thank you. You have the draft minutes in your packet for June 20, 2022. Is there a motion to approve? A second. Thank you, Danny. Any corrections, deletions, additions? I would like to thank Pat and Bruce and the board for recognizing Dave Corr's contribution to us, and I miss him a great deal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. The second quarter investment, Jim?
In your booklets is the second quarter ending June 30th, 2022. Public Authorities Law requires that we provide you with a statement on a quarterly basis that shows the balance of our investments with any earnings and any expenses. Again, this is the second quarter of the year. And obviously you can see by the rates, they're very minimal. They may be going up over time. Some of these investments, there may be additional investment opportunities as time goes on because I think rates may tick up a little, but not so sure. Any questions?
Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Rich. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Al. Any further comments, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. The June finance?
Yes. Also in your packet is June 30th, 2022 financial report. Water consumption is still very healthy, above the prior year by 8.8%. So we're up over. We went a little down from May. We're at 10.5% in May. We're still up 8.8. So we're doing very well. Water sales is up 80,000 compared to our budget. Actually up 745,000 compared to last year, which partly because of the increase in consumption and also the rates. So that's good. And cash flow is very healthy. We're just over $1 million. We'll need that as we go into the fall to make some large payments for health insurance and retirement and things like that.
Any questions for Jim? Thanks, Jim. Pat?
Okay, so first up, even though it's not on the agenda, there was a capital committee meeting, but there were no action items that came out of it, so it wasn't listed here. But one thing I just wanted to point out in your packets, you may have seen this handout. One of the things we discussed at the capital committee meeting, which was really just informational purposes, it doesn't require board approval, but we are going to be purchasing this large vacuum truck, which we're going to be needing for not only to investigate lead service lines. This will make it a lot easier for us to verify if we have to actually expose a line to determine if it's lead or not. This can actually, with vacuum suction, open up a very small hole that doesn't require opening the street and everything else. So in that respect, it's going to be extremely useful to meet the regulatory deadlines, but it can also be used to excavate holes on main breaks a lot faster than digging with a backhoe and a lot safer. And it's already, we figured out how to pay for it in the existing budget, which is why it doesn't require board approval at this point. We're not altering the budget. We were notified that some of the vehicles we had ordered for this year aren't going to come in. They canceled the orders. So we're just reprioritizing a number of capital expenditures to be able to do this. but we thought it was important to let you know it's a pretty substantial investment. We'll probably buy that pretty soon because there are only a limited number of ones available to us right now, and it's going to be key to helping us meet this regulatory requirement.
So this uses water to actually bore the hole?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
And then it can hold, I think, 8 or 9 tons of dirt and water that comes out of the hole in the truck before you have to go empty it. So neat piece of equipment. We just wanted to let you know that we're working on doing that.
Currently have any of these vac trucks?
We have a small vac truck, but nothing of this magnitude. The small one we use really just to clean out curb boxes. And
Additional training required?
there'll be probably a little bit of training with it, which we'll do. The dealership will do that. So we'll have a couple guys that'll be certified, and only people that are very well trained and skilled on it would be allowed to use it, obviously. So it will require that, but again, it'll allow us to. We're going to have anywhere between potentially 14 and 18,000 service pipes. We're going to have to verify over the next year and a half to 2 years.
So how many does that mean per day to knock out the list?
We don't know yet, but this will be a lot faster than digging them by hand, that's for sure. And hopefully, we're not going to have to uncover every one of those pipes. We're looking for other methodologies to be able to verify it, especially going by date and time of cutoff for lead services and things like that. Next item I thought I'd mention is that the budget packets, courtesy of Jim and his department, have gone out to our internal departments. So today is the kickoff of our internal drafting process of the budget. We try to get a draft of that budget to the board by late August or early September, and then a couple of workshops. And for those of you that are a little bit newer, like Carl, we are required by law to have a budget in place by the end of October. The Public Authorities Law says that we have to have a budget passed and a rate schedule passed no later than 60 days prior to the start of the fiscal year. So when you back it up, that makes November 1st. We typically pass the budget in October, and we're starting that process right now. So we'll be reviewing it in-house with all of our departments.
Next board meeting, we'll give you a budget calendar, just so you know when things are going to occur.
And we schedule some workshops, and that way the board has time to dig into it and ask questions and such.
Yeah, during the discussion at the Capital Projects Committee, we learned more about those who have been around a little longer, what we already know is that our potential future expense for particularly capital projects, pipe replacement and such, is going to, over the next few years, if not for the next 5 to 7 years, for any number of reasons, is going to be a lot higher than normal. It's going to affect our discussions with respect to rates much more than it has over the last 10 years. It came up at the meeting, I don't know if it was Vince or someone had brought up that we should start now to inform the media about stories that would emphasize the higher costs of operating the system. It's not going to eliminate people criticizing rate increases, that's fine. But I just think it's easier to try and explain things over time than a month before we take a vote, and then all of a sudden people are wondering, what are all these things? And they've never heard anything. Obviously, I'm not talking necessarily about the local paper because it's basically not local anymore. But we do have TV and radio. And if there are opportunities where staff can talk about what's going on and where we're going and why the types of investments that may be happening in the future before we start talking about what the rate proposals might be. I just would encourage, but I think it was Vince, what he said was to find opportunities to talk about the science, talk about the engineering, talk about the importance of potable water and future development and what that means to investment so that it doesn't become a surprise. This is a good organization that works very hard to keep its costs down, but it's also an organization over a century old that has, not an organization, but the system basically is very old, and it's going to cost a lot of money over the next too many years. So just encouraging some.
And I agree 100%, so we'll be working on that. Thanks, Bruce. Very recently, in the last few days, actually, we received from the New York State DEC a draft of our new, what's called a Speedies permit. It's for the water treatment plant. Speedies is an acronym that essentially has to do with environmental discharges. I don't know, have we ever figured out exactly what the letters in Speedies means? But at any rate, it's a state permit for environmental
Discharge elimination system.
There you go. Thank you. Anyway, when we backwash the treatment plant, it has to go down to the lagoons and then there's sludge and we discharge effluent into the creek and there's a permit for that. And the last permit expired in 2010, 12 years ago. We were working very, very closely with the DEC at that time to try to get a new permit. They did a number of investigations. We actually had an attorney from Hancock and Estabrook, Wendy Marsh, working with us, and did a lot of give and take with the DEC, trying to show them that some of the things they were talking about in a new permit may not have been based on particularly sound science. And so it went dormant for a number of years, and now they've sent a draft permit to us. So there's a 90-day comment period. We'll be providing some feedback. I haven't looked at it very closely myself. Phil's given it a quick overview, and it sounds like at least there's going to probably be some new requirements for additional sampling. We don't know yet what that cost might be, but we'll try to identify all that, obviously, before we start building stuff into a budget. But this permit could conceivably be a little more costly to us. Anything, Phil, you want to add to that, or?
No, that's what we would anticipate, other than there's also an anti-backsliding clause, right? So it's not going to be any less restrictive than the expired permit.
Okay. Not bad, huh? Not bad. In your packet, there's also a couple of updates. At the last month's meeting, Carl asked a question about how we go about doing postings for shutoffs and how we age the bills and such. Jim Mack provided an overview of the billing process, which we don't need to really go into right now unless anybody has a specific question on it. But take it home, take a look at it. If there's anything you want to follow up on, we're happy to answer your questions. And Ann Miligrano can speak real briefly about what we do as far as the actual shut-off process goes, if there's a question on that too. But essentially, the question was, and Carl had pointed out that the town hall, where he's involved in, Marcy, gets copies of the postings that we sent out. We do that with all the municipalities, essentially, to let the code enforcement folks at the town levels, especially the city as a code office, to let them know that there's a property that may become uninhabitable when the water gets shut off. So it's more for the benefit of the codes inspectors, but obviously the town officials see that as well. But we don't send those out in widespread circulation because it's hard to track from day to day. We put the posting out, some people pay up right away, and it's changing. It's constantly in flux. I will say though that since the moratorium on shutoffs expired, and we began posting in February, we've now received or recovered, I should say, right around $900,000. I think, Jim, the number you gave me was $890-something thousand to date since February that we've been able to collect in delinquencies through this posting process. So it is very effective, and I would encourage you to look at this material. If you have any specific questions, we can certainly follow up on those. And then the last thing I want to mention is attached to that, there's also an update. This is on that longer paper on our SCADA project. And this is something that started actually 2 or 3 years ago. SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. See, I knew that one, Phil. And it's our remote control monitoring and controlling of the water system. So it's all the interfaces with pumps and elevation gauges and everything in the system that tells us what's happening out there. And based on our IBM cybersecurity assessment, we had a lot of work to do, and a complete overhaul of our SCADA system was about due at that time. The system we had was put together in-house by a gentleman who did a great job with it, but it's aging out, it's antiquated, and since then it's become vulnerable to hacking. So we hired Brock as a company out of Toronto to do this project. They've made great progress. Our IT department, our engineering department has worked very closely with them. And that project will be winding down by late September or October. We should be completely done. It was a $2.5 million conversion. Most of it's up and running now, and it's doing great. And Jim, is there anything you want to add to that, or that covers it? But we thought we'd give you an update on that because it's a project that's been going great guns and going very smoothly.
This is the schematic for system.
That's what one of the screenshots looks like, yeah. Yeah, just as an example. Last thing I'll mention is that we did have a presentation from Neptune Meters. They're the radio reading metering system. We've gone through all 4 proposals with them. Our attorney, Ken Bobrow, who couldn't be here tonight, sat in on those presentations. We're continuing to evaluate it. Our consultant has also been scouring through these proposals, and we're working with him very closely to figure out what might make some sense. We envision at this point getting into a negotiated process with them to see what we can really come back with to bring for board consideration, hopefully short of litigation. So anyway, Ken's been involved the whole way. We're continuing to work on it, so as soon as we can wrap our hands around something that we think is something that the board could entertain and make some sense, we'll bring that to you as soon as we have that. May not be by next month, but certainly by the following month. And then the other issue is our contract renewal with the treatment plant, which I think because it's a negotiation, the chairman and I have already discussed, we would like to defer that to executive session. So I'll be quiet unless there's any questions.
Thanks, Pat. Any old business? Any new business? We need a motion to go in executive session to review potential contracts.
So moved.
Gentlemen. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.